Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Pranic Healing Podcast. On this episode, we're going to talk about leadership through pranic healing. And our guest speaker is Erick Rivas. Erick is a controller in commercial real estate. He also owns his own production company. He also is a pranic healer and arhatic yogi. And we're going to really talk about today how Erick's journey in pranic healing helped him foster really a huge amount of personal growth, which helped him become a better leader. So please welcome Erick. Hi there, Erick.
Hey there. Thank you for having me here. Appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. And again, I'm really excited about this topic because we were talking before, we didn't really touch upon, personal growth and leadership on this podcast at all. And I think it's such a important topic, especially when we talk about energy healing and pranic healing and, really moving this work forward. But before we jump into that, exciting topic, I just wanted everyone to listen to you and talk a little bit about your introduction and how you got started and things like that.
Sure. And I'm happy to share this because everyone goes through their different journeys here, whatever the case may be. For me, mine was, I was looking for something more as I was going through the commercial real estate ranks in the accounting area. I felt that I enjoy numbers. However, I enjoyed leadership even more, but I really didn't know what leadership meant for me. So I started looking at different personal development events, and I would go to a couple of them, and they did give me inspiration. More importantly, it gave me more perspectives to consider. I believe that's as I did more and more, I came across a couple of masters in pranic healing. I mean, we talked about Master Co, Master Glenn, Master Marilag. And when I heard about pranic healing and I heard Master Co's journey, hearing about how his wife had an injury, and it was specifically to the back, and I had problems with my lower back, and I heard about it. Oh, maybe I can look into this a little bit more and see what it would entail. Little did I know that was.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Erick. Just for our audience out there, because a lot of our audience aren't pranic healers, so they don't know about the story with Master Co's wife. Can you just briefly summarize what that was? Because it was an amazing story.
Right. So his wife had an injury. I think she broke her back or somewhere there where she had.
Yeah, she fell off like a couple stories from a building, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And they said it might take a couple of years for her to recover. And even then, she would still need assistance in being able to walk. And so through his own journey, he found pranic healing and the founder of pranic healing. And within a couple of months, through the art of it, the science of it, which is a combination of both, and that will go into leadership in a moment, the art and science, is to hear the result. And I said, let me look into it. And as I looked into it more and more, this is about 2018, I believe.
2018.
First, her Master Co. And finally, 2019, it clicked with me, summer of 2019. You know what? Let me look for a meditation group in the DC area. So I did. And by January 2020, I took my first class. And of course, the pandemic hit. And luckily, we still were able to do meditations, which is beautiful, is that this modality does not require to be in the area physically around people, although it does offer its advantages. There's also the distance aspect of it, which made it safer for all of us during that time and still have a collaboration and connection with others there. So from there, I started to grow and doing my healings for other people. And it's kind of funny is when you actually help other people, you actually help yourself. So there's this one saying that we hear a lot when you come into a leadership role is you want to know how much you know about your topic, go ahead and teach someone about it. So in accounting, pranic healing, your profession as well, how you've come up in the ranks, it's the same thing. It's like we actually know or we don't know how much we know or we do, maybe not give ourselves enough credit for it until we actually step on that stage to do so. And I'll tell you this, it's scary. It's really scary to do it at first, but then once you're in there and you get into your flow, you really put aside your limiting beliefs or whatever the moment is bringing to you that says, should I do this or not? Once you step onto there, and this is where it comes to leadership and how pranic healing helped me, you start to understand, appreciate people's perspectives. And I will say that's kind of the spiritual growth that I found out, because over time I came to find out business is a spiritual game. I mean, for me in the corporate world, I spend more time with my coworkers, even if it's virtually. I spend it with them than I do with my actual family.
Mm,
And with that, I have to appreciate when their time, especially during the pandemic. People have families, kids. Some people are wearing multiple hats. And how do you work to the point of anticipating? And I will say that pranic healing helped me to realize leadership is about doing your best to anticipate, to have empathy, to understand other people's perspectives, and then recalibrate your leadership style, your mission, even the execution of your
mm,
blueprint to
mm.
in order to I'll say have a chance of succeeding, but more importantly, have a chance of being confident enough to recalibrate yourself. Because I believe leadership is all about consistent recalibration. Um, and I really have to thank Pranic Healing for guiding me on that.
Yeah, yeah. I was trying to keep track of all those things that you're mentioning, like, because it's very interesting, especially with leadership. Because you were saying a couple of key words that I was trying to hone in on. Like the first one was anticipation, perspective, and of course recalibration. Those are things that we don't really, I think, when we think of spirituality, right? We don't really think about. And I loved your journey because like you said, in your position, in your role, leadership almost is maybe different for every field, of course. Of course, in the healthcare field, it's a little bit different. There's a structure and there's a hierarchy. But I loved what you said, because leadership is not only very important in business, right? But business is also a spiritual game, like you said. So I'm just curious, Eric, how did pranic healing help you specifically on unfolding this path for you, and helped you start realizing this, but also applying the techniques to help you see those positive results or improvements?
Well, let me say about the physical part. The physical part is, why would I come back home or sign off from my computer? And of course, during the pandemic time, sometimes we didn't sign off because we didn't have that filter of commuting to tell us, okay, we shut down the computer, or in my case, my laptop, and then move on with your day or start to turn over your day to your more personal time. It made me realize is even as a team member, beyond being a leader, because if we treat our team, I feel like if we treat our teams like team members versus there's a leader and that part, you get to appreciate who you work with. And for me, going back to your question about how did pranic healing help out with me, is the physical part is, well, we learn techniques through pranic healing and how to even heal ourselves as healers, because we can only do so much if we have a certain amount of energy. So if we have low energy, of course, maybe we can do one, maybe two healings. If we have higher energy, we can come into, even if it's one or two healings or more, come into it with much more energy. So being more mindful of leading my own energy first and foremost. And that starts up here with the mindset. That to me is what helped me with pranic healing, is saying I control what comes into my mind and I control what I let fester or ferment into my mind. So this is where perhaps deviating from, well, pranic healing, isn't that just you go in and you heal someone and next? It's really about, well, first we got to start with ourselves. How do we feed our minds consistently? And there can be moments where we don't hit the mark for ourselves, but how do we recalibrate ourselves? So that's a word I probably used already 5 times already, recalibration. So radio feel is we're constantly recalibrating ourselves. I mean, I'm sure even our computers are recalibrating, they're updating themselves probably once, twice a month. So we should be doing the same, maybe daily if we can. But that's what it taught me, is to have the right perspective, or at least search for the right perspective, which leadership is about. You want to get the best information as much as you can to make your best decision. And then you want to protect and grow not just your energy, but also your team's energy. So it's about building the culture of high energy, however we each define it, because however I define it, you define it probably in a similar way, or with the same principles, just maybe with different vocabulary and nomenclature. Our next person that we talk to could have a different way, but the principles are the same. So that's to me where Pranic Healing helped me to realize, right viewpoints, take care of yourself, and you'll be able to take care of others. But here's the other part that I really believe is we're always on stage, whether we're having a podcast conversation here, we're walking down the street, we're talking to the cashier at a grocery store. We're always on stage and someone's feeding off of our energy and vice versa.
Yeah. Um, I loved what you mentioned about always on stage because it's when you're aware of the energy aspect, right? And it sounds like the theme of the section of what you just spoke about is just being very intentional, right? Being intentional about what comes in my mind, but being very intentional what comes out of you, right? When especially when you're on stage. And I love that example with the grocery store because you think no one's watching, but when energy, everything's always bouncing off each other, right? So it's very important to protect your own energy, as you said, so that you have more power to do the things that you need to do, but also your team members, right? Your family. So it really has a widespreading effect. And I like to go back when you started in the beginning. Yeah, physically, right? Physically, very important. Pranic healing first is about a healing modality that heals. We learn to heal our physical body, but eventually, as you mentioned, we get onto our emotions and our thoughts, and that's where kind of the higher level things come in. And especially with leadership, as you mentioned, it's really about that mindset and how you can get better on a day to day basis. And like you said, recalibrate. Master Choa, he was an amazing teacher and entrepreneur and leader, right, in his own right. And one of the things that he always said was, you have to think for yourself, but use these teachings as a tool to recalibrate, to improve on a daily basis. And that was his big thing with Arhatic yoga, right? Personal development, character development, and things like that. So that's amazing, Erick. And what did those, specifically, what did those results produce for you? Can you give us like specific examples of how, you know, these pranic healing techniques or teachings helped you turn X into Y and then Y into Z? Do you have like a specific example that we can kind of anchor this topic around?
Yeah, well, I can give you an example where when we do healing. So we had our healing nights virtually during the pandemic, and I would have to do my work. So we're thinking about a mindset of numbers. Like in accounting, it's typically very structured, but there's also an art to a science to it as well. But mostly it's a science, and then be able to switch gears and be able to say, all right, well, after that, got to cut that part off, move into this part of giving back, of healing, of serving your clients from a healing modality. Well, two different mindsets, but also ask different kinds of energies from you. So being able to come into it and say, how am I using my energy? How am I also giving myself a chance to recharge myself after a full day of, say, answering emails, video conferences, whatnot. So that's one way where I realized that pranic healing helped me to understand that this is wonderful what I do, serving my commercial real estate community. It's also very beautiful to serve the pranic healing community. At the same time, it's all about energy. Everything is energy, mental energy, physical energy there. The other part here, when it comes back into leadership, specifically in the commercial real estate part that I'm experiencing, is I get to look and search for how is the person showing up.
Mm.
I had a coach that said to me, there are 5 questions we should ask ourselves on a consistent basis. I'll go through 3 of them, which is on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I showing up right now? Right.
How
And
much do you want to bring out?
yeah, how much you
Mm.
want to bring out. 10, you're ecstatic, you're really on fire, and so forth. And lower than that, you just kind of lowers the level. But of course, you always want to aim for that 10 part. Well, the second question is, well, why do you give yourself that number? And then here's the part that really helps shift with mindset, with energy, which is what pranic healing is about, is, well, what's amazing, outstanding, and really excellent in your life right now that you can shift your mindset from. Let's just say I told you, Jason, I'm at a 7 right now. Well, you asked me that third question. Well, what's amazing, outstanding, excellent in your moment in your life right now? and I share that with you, my own physiology changes from there. So to be able to come to you and give you my assessment then, but then also recalibrate myself to where I want to be, and here's why, because I can piggyback off success. That to me has helped me realize our words matter. So we're talking about healing. We can heal people with our words. We can encourage people with our words. We can change people's energies with our words. And that is what pranic healing taught me so much is I can say something and I can change someone's mood, or I can reinforce the mood, whatever it may be. I have the opportunity to do so. And leadership through pranic healing is something that I probably couldn't share with you because I didn't understand it myself probably a year ago. But then the more I kept thinking back and writing my notes, like what was different about this? Well, I thought about the other person. Like how is their energy? How, in this case, how is their love, passion? The word for that is passion for the job at the moment, and appreciate them for where they are right now. That's what helped me out.
Yeah. Um, Again, a lot to unpack there, and I'm trying to, just because I'm not, and I think most people, right, when coming into the perspective of commercial real estate, it's like, oh, it sounds like a completely different area, a foreign area. So for me to wrap my head around that, but it's like any other field, right? And I love the questions that you asked, right, and to ask yourself on that scale, and to go back to what you mentioned about words have so much power, right? As we know, humans are more or less more emotional beings than physical or mental. We have the spectrum there, but really the emotions drive the physiology, as you said, and the power of words, right? And I think they're saying like change your words, change your story, change your reality, right? So it has so much power, and that's what we call mind body medicine, where you change the narrative, the emotional narrative, the mental thought narrative, and your biology literally changes. So I love that part. And pranic healing is amazing because like you said, it gave you that intention, that tool. And we know deep down when we work with psychotherapy how that happens, right? How that works and how it relates to the energy centers. And again, I like what you mentioned, because there's, again, that physical side and getting work done, but there's the spiritual side and serving others, serving your community in pranic healing and your commercial real estate community. So and then in terms of your journey, Erick, kind of going back, you took these courses, you took these classes, you applied the teachings. What made you continue? Like how did you know that, oh, this was right for me? This was it. This was the path that you're going to take. This is the path you're going to run with, because there's many different schools out there, right? Different schools on not only energy healing but just personal growth and philosophy. So how did that, in terms of pranic healing, help you? But how did you know that this was the right place for you?
It's a great question because it is true. I mean, we have different modalities. Some are really popular here at the moment, and whenever someone listens to this or re-listens to this podcast, there might be a different modality that has, I'll call it, hit the market or has gained traction. Well, for me, and I think this is the other part when it comes to leadership, is the community. The community I was learning to be a part of, and it seemed very natural, fluid for me to go there and gravitate. Now, I know in some of the classes we take with some of the masters, they talk about the reasons behind that, the spiritual and the energetic gravitation towards that. I think it's the accountability that has come from there, the relationships. I mean, Jason, if it wasn't for pranic healing, we probably wouldn't have this connection unless, I don't know, we'd have to come up with
Been a
a
while,
scenario.
yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that we're able to connect through pranic healing right here, it shows the community. I mean, you're in your profession as well as a doctor, myself in accounting and also in production. It influences, or it can influence different aspects of it. And why it continued is because I saw results from it. I saw results from being a
Mm.
pranic healer. You see people tell you these stories and you're like, oh, this is beautiful. This is wonderful. And you hear healers and their journeys because You hear, I always call myself, I'm on maybe chapter 3 of my Pranic Healing journey. You hear people who are on chapter 10. You hear these wonderful, beautiful things that are happening. And it's like, wow. So the more we serve, the more we give, the more we actually start to experience,
Right.
again, what I call leadership.
Yeah. That, and I go back because all these other schools, they might tell you the techniques, but you may not understand why you get certain results. And what amazes me about pranic healing in the community is that I believe that we have such an amazing community and such a strong and inspiring community is because we know why it happens. We know it's called like the mechanism of action. When you take a drug, when you take anything in your body, it changes the biology, right? Something happens if there's a reaction. Pranic healing is almost literally like an energy spiritual mechanism of action. Master Cho was able to distill the teachings to such a simple level. I don't think we can make it any simpler, and it's so much easier to understand. And I think that's why the community is so strong. Is we understand these teachings, we see the results, right? When we see the results, we're like, oh, duh, this happened because I was serving. I was getting more energy, so my heart and crown center was bigger. So there's all these explanations that are out there. And again, going back to the community and leadership, right? I think there's a big, there's an important saying: too many chiefs, not enough Indians, right? And in pranic healing, I feel like there's a good enough hierarchy, right? We have the masters, and above them is like the institute, but we have the senior instructors, and then the instructors, and the pranic healers that may have taken basic, a couple weekends ago. So there's sort of a pecking order, and I loved how you talked about, you're on chapter 3 versus someone on chapter 10, but you can kind of see like how they got there, right? Just applying these simple teachings. And yeah, I think, like you said, if it wasn't for the community, we would not be talking right now face to face virtually. I would not be, doing this podcast, and we would not be doing all these amazing things online virtually right now. So that's a really important aspect. And I think Master Cho has said group work, right, is going to be very important in the future. And leadership is almost the underpinnings of having successful group work, because you have a lot of different people with a lot of different ideas, and it's all about managing that, which I'm sure all about in your field. So so yeah, I think the next part, Eric, I wanted to kind of dive deep into speaking about leadership. um I think that the common question is, you know, I don't think I can be a leader. I never felt like a leader. I'm more of a follower. I never can see myself being a leader. What would you tell those people? What would you tell them? Because that's a common question I hear. And I'm some people say, "Oh, you're a natural born leader," but some people are not. Is there a case of that, or what's your explanation?
Yeah, I will say to you, from my perspective, I never thought about leaders. I just thought about the hierarchy. Okay, someone's above me, you listen to them, and then you do what they say, and you'll get promoted, and you'll go through this ladder, and da 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 from there. That's the way to live. That is a way to live. However, I would say for myself, I came to realize, is that the way I want to live? And I think pranic healing helped me to appreciate that question and give it more energy, and figure out what different answers can I come up with it, because there is no one answer. That it'd be like saying, okay, you and I, we're going to wear white t-shirts because that's the way we've been told that white t-shirts all you can wear. Well, let's kind of wear different things that work with us, work with our culture, work with our business culture, work with our social culture. And that's where I think leadership is we start to think about, well, what do I what do I really want? And there's seasons for our responses there. And for ourselves who are in pranic healing, for those who are not pranic healing, and just those even just listening to this and saying, well, I just tuned into this, and what about leadership is this all about? Leadership is about, how do you want to show up, and in the season you're currently in. Because I could tell you, if the answer to my question on that a year ago is different than it is today, and it's going to be different even I would say 30 days from now, which is where constant improvement happens. We're always improving, we're always getting better, or we're staying at level, which kind of means we're actually going down a little bit. I like to say the word is every day we're either promoting ourselves or we're demoting ourselves in some way. And I like to believe that we're always doing our best to intentively promote ourselves. So
Mm.
I would summarize my thing. My thing was this: if you don't think you're a leader, that's wonderful. That means you're being self-aware about where you are right now. Where do you want to go in the next 30 days? What's that one thing we can make it work on to redefine what leadership means to you?
Mm. I love that. I love that answer. Because it really starts with yourself, right? You have to be, first of all, the leader for yourself, your life, right? Where do you want to be? How you want to show up every morning, right? And I think those are such important questions because many of us, me included, before pranic healing, it's like we just live unconsciously. It's like you wake up, you do the same thing, never really think about, your direction in life and how you want to be and who you want to be, right? And how you want to present yourself. And through pranic healing, you become more aware of this. Like, oh wow, I think I might want to do that, but I don't know. But oh, I guess these teachings and tools will help me. So yeah, so that's important. And again, I love what you said, improving every day. There's a what is it? There's a statistic. If you get 1% better every day, 1% better over the course of a year, that will accumulate to you becoming 37 times better, right? So, and I go back to that because the answer you give me today is a very different answer than what you would have told me a year ago, right, or 2 years ago, right? So, in pranic healing, we understand that, right? Truth is dynamic, right? Just because I'm wearing a white T-shirt now, even though that's a societal norm, as you said, I might be wearing a blue one or a yellow one, right? Truth is constantly uh, expanding, right? And we have to keep up with it, just as we continue to improve. And that's why I love about Master Choa's teachings, because just like technology, our phone gets better every year, right? You buy a new phone. We, as a spiritual being, as and as an antenna to our higher soul and these higher teachings, we should continue to get better. And I think that starting with leadership is such a fundamental basis because, like you said, it starts with us, and then you affect your family, you affect your friends, your work, and all your relationships in your community. So that's amazing. And to kind of like, I guess, close off and cap off this topic, Eric, I love your background because it really shows how, again, like average normal people, right, can get into spirituality and energy healing and really take it and use it for our advantage, right? Really improve our lives and build a meaningful, intentional, and fulfilling life. What would you tell, again, someone that maybe in your field, commercial, real estate, accounting, production, or anyone on the street, if they asked you what was the number one thing they could do to help with leadership, what would you tell them?
Keep showing up every day. Just show up. And I would say alert. This is I'm going on a slight tangent, so I apologize for this. This is something I learned from in junior college. I took a course on theater. Is you're always going to warm up. Either you warm up beforehand or you're going to warm up while you're on stage. But the point is, you're always going to warm up. And I took that to heart so much and saying, how am I going to show up? And if for whatever reason I forgot to warm up in that moment, I will still warm up throughout the day. But the point is, I still showed up. I still appreciated the journey. And notice I didn't say mistakes or successes along the way. The journey. Um, that to me, someone who wants to learn about leadership or someone who's curious about what does leadership mean to them, I would guide them to say, show up and see what happens when you do, and find out what patterns do you tend to exhibit, and then what patterns would you like to further exhibit or add to who you are right now.
Mm, I love that. in theater of all places. I never took theater, and I wish I did. Now hearing you talk about that, warming up, oh man, that's a great one, Eric. I will keep that in my back pocket to use when it comes time for this reference. Um, well,
Sure.
awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. I think that this conversation today was, really inspiring, not only for our audience, but for me, right? When we put ourselves out there on the internet, when we put ourselves, in front of strangers, many people, hundreds of people, thousands of people who we don't know. I love what you said about how are we showing up. And for me, I always intend to improve myself because I know it's not only me, it's about this podcast. It's about the podcast is a platform for spreading the teachings, and we do it in the ways that we need to or want to, right? And in the ways that you're doing for yourself in your community, which is amazing. So, and I think the tips and tools and your experiences that you described today was really enlightening, and it was again really helpful for me. And I definitely took away a couple things that I will start implementing on my podcast as well. So thank you so much, Eric. And if anyone wants to reach out to Eric, I will leave down his information below, especially if you're in the DC area. You can join Eric's pranic healing meditations and activities and things. So yeah, and then we will hopefully see everyone in the next podcast. So thank you so much, Eric. Take care.
You too. Thank you.